Why is it these apparently liberal democracies of the West are such incredibly violent warmongers? Capitalism requires an imperial arrangement as a fundamental condition for its existence. The key element of capital accumulation is that you need cheap labor and cheap nature. Now, you can do that domestically only to a certain extent, cheapening your working classes and exploiting your ecological base until you face contradictions, like you're going to have a revolution or your ecological base will become degraded and you won't be able to produce anymore. And so capital has to resolve this problem by finding an outside, and that is where colonialism came in. And we can see this empirically, where growth in the core capitalist economies, Western Europe, the USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Israel, depends on a massive appropriation of labor and nature from the global south. In order to maintain that flow of wealth from south to north, they have to prevent the global south from achieving sovereign developments. Any country that starts to achieve sovereign developments, like organizing their own resources and production around the national development needs of their own population, gets attacked. And the reason is because when global south countries do that, it's good for the global south, but it's inflationary for capital in the core because it increases the input price and makes profit maximization more difficult to achieve. And so what they want to do is they want to bomb those countries, destroy their development infrastructure, and make them cheap once again. And so if we want to see an end to imperialist wars, we have to overcome capitalism.
You said in your work that liberalism is actually dead. What do you mean?
It's an interesting political ideology where basically it's got two major commitments. On the one hand, it has a commitments to things like human rights, the rule of law, individual freedoms, even things like a little bit of welfare and, let's say, ecological protection and things like that.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. At the same time, liberalism is committed to capitalism. And this is essential to liberal ideology, is that ultimately they are committed to the processes of ensuring that production is controlled by capital and maintaining the conditions for capital accumulation. The problem here is that when these things come into conflicts, then liberal leaders will resolve the contradictions in favor of capital accumulation. And this is what explains the fact that liberals have this reputation of being hypocrites. They're full of spectacular contradictions. You get people who are committed to things like liberal rights and etc., then openly backing a genocide. Like, what is anyone supposed to make of that? I mean, this is a very severe contradiction. And then what happens is that, crucially, liberals are anti-socialist. And so they'll do everything possible to crush actual progressive socialist movements.
Why is that? Why are liberals anti-socialist?
Because of their ultimate, most important commitment, which is to capital accumulation. They will never let that be threatened. And that's why we saw, like, when somebody as beloved as Bernie Sanders was a few years ago in the primaries, they had to band together and crush him. Now, this is interesting because when you're crushing socialist movements and you're ultimately also yourself crumbling and failing, then what does that do? It leaves a political vacuum open to who? The far right, right? And so liberalism gives way to fascism over and over and over. It's like clockwork. Fascists, their core principle also is capital accumulation, right? But they just dispense with the liberal values. And so liberals are actually more comfortable handing power over to the far rights because they're confident that at least capital is going to be protected than they are handing power to socialists who will maintain their liberal values of rule of law and rights and things like that, but will not protect capital accumulation. And this is why we see this constant back and forth between the far right liberals, the far right liberals. The fascists take control, they create total social chaos. Everyone's like, this is far too extreme for us. Let's go for that safe center option again. They vote for the liberals, liberals come back into power, rinse and repeat over and over.
It's so funny, right? That why they do all this, okay? Why they squeeze us to the bones? Why they use deceptive means to steal our resources? And why they use sinister method to corrupt our politicians, or better still, dethrone some of them through coups and insurgencies. They turn around and give us aid. You know, I have had a serious problem with foreign aid because I, for one, think that foreign aid has never served its purpose. It has never gotten to the people who really needed those aid. It's sad, right, that rather than them setting up a plan in Africa to produce paracetamol, they rather give us paracetamol to consume. Rather than setting up a manufacturing plant in Ghana that turn cocoa into chocolate. They rather we import chocolate from them. And the reason is but simple. They don't want us to become self-reliant. They don't want us to be independent. They don't want us to do things for ourselves. Because if we start developing ourselves, if we start making ourselves independent, it will be game over for them. So they use whatever means possible to keep us down. Now, I cannot blame them only because I think that this whole blame goes round. Our elites have also contributed to this problem. Our politicians have not been fair to us, the people. They also are partly to be blamed because they sold us to the Westerners. They are corrupt to their very own fingernail. They are horrible people. They are horrible people. So, in as much as we blame the Westerners and we try to educate people on some of the tricks that the Westerners are using against us, we must not forget to hold our own leaders accountable for their ineffectiveness in getting their own job done. As a leader, your first priority is your people. As a leader, you said you would do things for the people and you should do it. There shouldn't be no excuse. I see people come out and make excuses. I wanted to do this. Let me tell you something. I watched this video before, right? And there was this former leader. He used to be the prime minister and then he was no longer. And he was saying that there were so many things that he wanted to do that would have benefited the people a lot. But since he was the prime minister and not the president, he couldn't do those things because the president did not allow him to do it. And his whole excuse was that he is not to be blamed for all those things or all those failures because he had them in mind. He wanted to do them, but the president won't allow him do them. So everyone should blame the president. And I was like, no, you cannot say that. You cannot say that. You were the prime minister. Before you went to become the prime minister, you made promises to the people that you would do these things, that you have the ability to do these things. And by virtue of that, you should have done them. That was your responsibility. Listen, okay? Listen. I hate people who try to remove themselves from their own failures. I hate people who do not want to accept or admit their own failures. If you fail, just come out and say, I failed because I was not prepared. I did not know what I was getting myself into. And by so doing, I failed. I'm sorry. I'm going to learn more. I'm going to improve myself. I'm going to learn better. I'm going to have a much more better understanding of this situation next time before I get into it. That is better. But when you come on air and start saying that the reason you didn't do what you're supposed to do was because other people were stopping you from doing them, that doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Because remember, that was what you said you were going to do. A righteous person does what they say they will do. That is what a righteous person does. So, the Westerners, through their IMF and their World Bank and their foreign aid and their special aid and their donations, have squeezed Africa. Now, you might ask yourself that these people, why are they giving us all this aid? Is it because they are just like philanthropists or they have a good heart towards the African people? Some of you might think that, yes, the reason they give us all this aid is because they love us. But you'll be wrong. You'll be totally wrong. All the Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, with all their foundations in Africa, they're not there because they love us. No, No, don't confuse yourself. They are not there because they want to do charity. If they wanted to do charity, they should give away their hundreds of billions they have. They won't give it away. Why? They are not there to do charity. They are in Africa because of what they will gain from Africa. And whatever they do in Africa, serve them more. Hear this from me. Whatever those people do in Africa, serve them more than it serves us. Don't just look at the common paracetamol that they give you for headache. Look at the larger game, the larger scheme. What do they want to get out of it? Why are they even giving you the paracetamol in the first place? Why? What is their motive for doing that? If they couldn't let you set up a plan in your own country to produce paracetamol, why are they giving you the already made ones? Why? Ask yourself. The reason is they want you to be dependent on them. They want you to always ask them for paracetamol. They want you to always be holding to them. That is the reason why they are doing it. Why are they giving you aid? Because they don't want you to be self-reliant. They don't want you to be self-independent. They want you to be relying on the aid you get from them. So that whenever you say something they don't like, they just say, okay, fine. Since you decided to set what we don't like, we're not going to give you the aid anymore. And then they use that as a string against you. So you are always forced to toe the line. You are always forced to do as they want. Because any day you decided to think out of the box, any day you realize that maybe I have been taken for a fool for far too long, and it's high time I get my priorities in order. It's high time I begin to think for myself. They'll be like, so you want to do what we don't approve. Okay, no more aid for you anymore. No more IMF loans, no more World Bank loans. They will cripple your economy. That's what they do. That's exactly what they've been doing for years. And like I said before, this has been happening with the complacent of our politicians. They are the accomplice. They have signed off on all these things. The politicians, the special interests, the billionaires, the elites are a willing participant in all this. They are helping the Westerners suppress us in our own countries. They are part and parcel of this whole lie and deception and manipulation and destruction of the African continent. They are part and parcel of it. Shine your eyes, my brothers and sisters. Shine your eyes.